Hey everybody, welcome back. So I think this is about number 3 in the video series where I'm trying to make a CJ-7 body for that little Land Cruiser FJ40 RC car that I have. And in the first video, I took a look at a couple of different models, one by Sorpix on Colts and one by, I think it's Domi 1974 on Thingiverse, the one that he calls Carrosserie. And in the first video, I took the Sorpix model and I hollowed it because it was a solid model meant to be, you know, just something you shove an axle, a couple axles and put some wheels on and sit on your desk and it looks cool. And it does. It's a very accurate representation of the CJ-7. And the other model, the one called Carrosserie, which is all the pieces you're seeing here, it's designed actually to be put on an RC car, but it's like 40 different pieces and I suck at gluing. So remember in, I think the last video, we went into Fusion and I assembled some of the pieces and printed them. And that helps a lot, but these are still almost too big to go on my printer. So before I battle with this, and you see I printed a bunch of the pieces to it, before we battle this, or before I battle this any further, I want to go back and look at that Sorpix model, and that is this one here. Here it is. I've misplaced. I've had so many pieces to this around I misplaced it. That's this one here. I hollowed it out, and this model is 1/32 scale, I believe, because my RC car, I believe, is 1/16 scale, although some people said it's a little bigger than 1/16. But anyway, it has an 8-inch wheelbase, and this is 4 inches. So I'm thinking this needs to be doubled in size. And also, I don't like the fact that the windows are filled. The author of this did give designs for the windows, so I think at some point he knew people were going to want to cut the windows out of it and glue in clearish windows. And there's, you know, parking lamps and bumpers and the fender flares and all of that on it too. But first off, thing I want to do, I want to take the windows out of it in Fusion and I want to scale it, and I want to start printing some pieces of it, some slices of it, to make sure the scaling is right. And that's what we're going to do in this video. So alrighty, I'm not going to spend a lot of time in Fusion here because I know that's not very popular, but the first thing I did was I brought the model that I hollowed back in, and it's still hollow. I haven't changed any of that. And then I removed the glass out of it, or the pieces of plastic that were in the positions the glass was in. And how I did that, and you can look down here at my timeline, I just clicked on each one of these facets, triangles, whatever you want to call them, in the window area, and I just did an extrusion part way in, you know, 3 millimeters in was enough. Unfortunately, Fusion would not let me do more than one at a time. When I tried, it simply unhighlighted all the ones except the first one, and it was impossible to push all the way through so you could do both sides, you know, at the same time, because the facets on both sides are not the same. And then I did the windshield and the front sides, and I intended to leave the backs alone, but I liked it so much that I did all of them. Oh, I also added the word Jeep on the back because I like that. Now, one of the problems I'm having is, of course, if I double this in size, it's too big to print on my Flash Forge A5N. I'm going to have to take it over and do it on the Alpha YZ20, which is a much, much slower printer. In fact, I have Cura open here, and Cura says it's going to take 1 day, 21 hours, and 52 minutes to print this. So I also did it in Prusa Slicer, and for some reason Prusa Slicer, despite the same printer setup, wouldn't allow me to do it lengthwise. I had to turn it into a corner. But Prusa Slicer is also telling me 1 day, 22 hours, and 49 minutes. So I decided to section it. I sectioned it right at the hood hinges, right where the body seams would all be normally anyway, because I figured that would give me the best look when I glued it back together. And then I added these tabs in to give me some way to, you know, help realign it and a little bit of strength in the gluing. And that did turn out to work out really well. So let's go look and see at some of the prints I did. Let me pop back over to Orca Slicer here. I also wanted to get the scaling down, so I took it in the mesh mixer and I did some slices of it, and I printed them so that I could make sure the scale was correct before I printed the entire thing. And that was this piece here. Okay, it is 7 a.m. in the morning. I got a cup of coffee going. I am going to print this body. Can't really see it here, but it says 8 hours. I think it's 8 hours and 29 minutes, it said. Here are the settings here. Loaded with Conjure White PLA. Gonna level first. Got leveling checked. Gonna level first, and let's go. We are 3 hours and 14 minutes in, and I have to say, so far we're looking pretty good. We are now 6 hours and 19 minutes into this print, and I think if I had to do it over again, I would have put in a 2-layer raft maybe to support that support, to brace that support onto the bed a little bit better. All right, it is all done. 7 hours and 49 minutes, and it originally said it was going to be 8 hours and 26 minutes, so pretty good time on that, and I have to admit, it looks pretty nice. Okay, so there is the finished part, and yes, that is a lot of support. It came off very, very easily. It all just broke off with my fingers, but yeah, that is a lot of support. Now it's all hollow. If you've ever done tree support before, those aren't solid pieces. They're all thin-walled hollow, but it's a lot, but it came off really easy, and it's not like I'm going to be doing a lot of these. My tabs here turned out to be a really good idea, because that's going to help me line those pieces up for gluing really well, and it's also going to give me a little extra support structure to glue. I'm very pleased with it. I'm going to get it glued together. I'm printing the fender flares in the tire carrier now, and get this thing glued together and try it out. So here is what I have, and dang, this thing is so close. The wheelbase is, I mean, if you sit it down on the model, if you sit it down about where it would go, the wheelbase is really close to being what I want it to be. But the problem is, the chassis, it just does not fit on it. I have the body cut away so that this part could project through and I could mount my bumper on it. So, boy, but that is so close. There's also a problem under here. This part of the lower part of the front grille contacts right here and doesn't let it set down. When I move it far enough to let it set down, and it's almost in the perfect position when it does, when I move it far enough there to let it sit, I might even leave that front bumper on there. That looks so much like the front bumper I made for my real CJ-7 that it's close enough for me. But when I do that, now the wheels are in the incorrect positions. I hate printing a whole nother one of these. I was really hoping I was going to get it right the first time, but I got so close, but not quite. I think I am going to have to print another one. So I'm kind of taking another look at this model, and I made a few small modifications. I cut the back away a little bit so it would sit down. Let me get the camera around there. So it would sit down onto that frame a little better, and that would also make a nice mounting point for the body and for the bumper. And in the front, I cut away, I kind of cut the grill up a little bit to the fenders, took the bottom of it off. It still look, I didn't like doing that, but it just doesn't sit on it any other way. And I went inside and I thinned that inside behind the grill. I thinned it. I probably took 3-4 millimeters off of that, because one of my problems is here. If you look at the original body, hang on, let me get it. If you look at the original body, the grill on the original body comes all the way up to where the fenders are. But on the CJ, the grill is set back in a ways. And the problem is this here. This here is where the grill needs to be. Now, this whole little platform unscrews and I could move it back, but the problem is the steering is there. So if I move it back any significant amount, I mean more than a few millimeters, it's going to hose the steering on it up. So with those modifications, it kind of sits on there a little bit better. Let me try and get it about where it would sit, where I would want it to sit. There we go. That's about where I would want it to sit. Now you're thinking that's awful high, and it does look awful high, but there is my Jeep there. So while this is certainly higher, and I would really like it to sit down lower, it really can't because it's on that thing in the front. Yeah, it could come down to about there, and that's a little bit better. So sitting here looking at this with it set on about how it goes, I kind of took a break from it and came back the next morning, and I'm kind of looking at it, trying to make up my mind. It is so close, but yet so far. It in order to make this fit correctly, it's slightly too long. It really needs to be maybe 5% shorter from front to rear, but it also needs to be wider. It's not really wide enough for the width of the wheels. Not much, you know, between 5 and 7% would probably make it right. But the problem with that making it shorter is now I'm exacerbating the problem up here with the grill hitting that platform that the steering is mounted on, and there really isn't much I think I could do about the steering. But if you look at the hood compared with the hood of the real one, that hood on the model is too short. I mean, I keep looking at that and I'm thinking that hood is just too short. So, and this is a rabbit hole, I keep going further and further down. It's just this part here that needs to be projected out. But to do that would be difficult since that's, you know, kind of compound curves there. Anyway, part of me just says mount it like this and call it good and be happy. Part of me wants to think about it a bit more. And part of me says this chassis is just never going to be correct for this. And I'm just going to set this aside for a few days and get a fresh mind about it. And I think the bearings and some of the other parts for the micro jib project arrive today or tomorrow. Maybe I'll work on that for a few days and then come back to this and kind of rethink the whole thing. Anyway, sorry to stop it now. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye for now.